I'm really sorry if I massacre your language. So I'll do my best. But anyway, Quebec is a great place to research if you're looking for your family. So today we're going to talk about, give you a little bit of historical background. We'll talk about the naming practices that are unique to Quebec. We'll describe the finding aids, discuss the major record types and what they contain and where to start on how to get started on searching. And we'll define other records to search, and we'll identify some of the internet resources that you might need to be aware of. So just to give you a little bit of historical background on Quebec, from 1660 to 1763, it was called New France, and it covered pretty much from present-day Canada all the way down to Louisiana, and except for some of the British colonies. And then in 1763, New France was turned over to Great Britain, but it still covered a lot of territory. And then from 1774 to 1784, the province of Quebec was established, and this shows the boundaries of the province of Quebec. So again, you can see it covered most of Quebec and Ontario, except for the Hudson Bay Company area. And then from 1791 to 1841, Quebec was called Lower Canada. Now, this always confused me when I would look at a map, because I'd say, no, wait, Lower Canada is higher on the map than Upper Canada. But what they were looking at is not where it is situated on the map, because they didn't have maps in those days to really look and see where it was geographically, but it is where it is located on the river. So it is Lower Canada because it's lower on the St. Lawrence River, and Upper Canada because it's upriver. So that's how you can remember those. So some of the census records and some of the other records that you might see for Quebec may give the location for, it may say the place of birth is LC or UC, meaning Lower Canada or Upper Canada. So that usually means Quebec or Ontario. And then in 1841, the name was changed to Canada East. And it remained Canada East until 1867. Ontario was called Canada West, and that is a little bit easier to understand because Quebec is east of Ontario. And again, in the census records and other things, you might see something that says CE or CW, Canada East or Canada West. That just means Ontario or Quebec. And then in 1867, Canada was organized with 4 provinces. The first 4 were Quebec, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. And this just kind of shows you a map of the Dominion of Canada, what it was called in those days. So naming practices. So most of the time, the naming practices are fairly standard for a lot of areas, but just some of the things, the little quirky things that you might need to be aware of for Quebec is maiden names. Women kept their maiden names in official records. So quite often, if you're looking for somebody in the death records and the burial records, look under their maiden names. And one of the problems with research in other areas, such as the United States, is finding the maiden names. In Quebec, it's quite a bit easier, just because the maiden names of the women are listed on a lot of the records that they have. So, which is a great asset for searching in Quebec. So, spelling variations. Spelling variations of names was not standardized until recently. A lot of things were spelled phonetically, and then French has some silent letters. So just so that you're aware, how you think it's going to sound, how it's spelled may be quite different from the way it's actually said. So for example, this is the same name, Gatineau. These are some of the phonetic spellings that you're going to find. Again, you can see that they're all spelled differently, but they're pretty much all pronounced the same way. And they didn't standardize those, so you may find it in one record spelled with at the end of the EAU, sometimes NAUT. So again, you want to look for all kinds of spellings just because it's not spelled the way you think it ought to be. don't worry about it because, again, the spellings were not standardized very early on. So, anglicized names. If an ancestor moved to the United States or to other English areas in Canada, their names may have been translated or anglicized in records. So, for example, you might have the name like Lamoureux, which became Lamora, anglicized, or Chartier became Carter when they moved to the different English areas. Roy or Roy became King, because that's a direct translation, and Poisson became fish. So again, because those are the French words for fish or king. So again, just something to be aware of if you're not finding them in the U.S. records or in the English areas of Canada under the name that you think it might be. Look for anglicized names. And so how are you supposed to know what those are? So there are some things that we'll talk about in a minute that will help you with some of those names. So they also have deed names, which means they're alias names, meaning he is named or he is called. So they use these second surnames to distinguish families. We had a handful of people who came to Quebec early on in the 1600s, and then they had a lot of them had the same names. So in order to distinguish different families with common surnames or different branches of the same family, they would often add a deed name, or often adopted the deed name as the family name, or drop the original surname just to keep them all straight, because they had so many people using similar names. So this is a website that will help you with deed names. This should be in your handouts so that you can go to that. So for example, some of the deed names, there's Gautier. One of the deed names is Gautier de Saint-Germain. You may see it, Gautier-Saint-Germain, and then they may have dropped the Gautier and just gone to Saint-Germain. So you might want to be aware of that as you're looking for ancestors. If you find a deed name and you're not finding them in the records after that, look for a variation of the deed name or look for them under the deed name so that you're aware. And then this is the website that I would suggest going to. American French Genealogical Society has this great website where it gives you variations so that you can click on a name, a surname, and then that will give you either the anglicized names or some of the common deed names that you might be aware of. So this will help you as you're looking for various surnames, especially if they're common, and see if you can, that will help you find your family. Given names. Children usually have several different names. Only one of the names is listed in the baptismal records quite often. A different name may have been used in later records. If a child died young, another child may have been given the same name. This is fairly typical in other countries also. In Quebec, they had rather harsh living conditions, weather conditions, and it was fairly primitive up there for quite a while. So they would actually have a mortality rate of children around 20 to 30%. So their Catholic families, they often were quite large families, and so they may have several children by the same name. And so if you're finding a child that's named the same thing over and over again, you might look for their burial records in addition to their baptismal records. So for help with some of the surnames, this is our research wiki page for Canada personal names. And this is just a part of that website, part of that wiki page. And it talks about some of the deed names, some of the variations. It also talks about personal names and what you would be looking for. So if you're getting stuck on names for Quebec, I would look at this wiki page. And yes, we have a question. The DIT means he is named or he is called. Yeah. So in other words, it would be Gautier, Diet, or he is called Saint-Germain, or whatever. Yes. Yes, question? Yes. Yes. I'll show you an example in a little bit. The name is written as part, the Diet name is written as part of the name, so I'll show you an example in a little bit. So. the DIT is not always part of the name that it was written down. Yes, you can find it either way. So you can find it sometimes with the DEET name in place, and sometimes they will take off the DEET and use it just one of the other of the names. So some of the finding aids, and just so that you know, there are links to these websites on your handout. So if you've printed the handout, you should be able to get those links. So some of the finding aids, the Family Search Research Wiki is a great place to start for Quebec. French word lists will be very helpful, especially if you don't read French very well, and like me. French-English Dictionary or Google Translate might be helpful. Maps, if you're having a problem getting maps, a lot of these are available online. All of the maps that I'm using here in this presentation are public domain maps, so you should be able to find them online. FamilySearch.org and Ancestry.com are two of your best resources to use, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. So the Family Search Research Wiki, this is the page for Quebec. It has all kinds of links in it. This is Quebec Online Records, so you can click on that, see what is available online currently, and then it will show you whether or not it is a paid site or it's a free site. So if it's a paid site, it'll have a little $sign, and some of you may have subscription websites that are paid, and you may have access to those. Ancestry is a paid website, but if you have an account, then you can use that. Find My Past and other things will show the same thing. But it's a great place to go in and find some of the links, find search strategies, name variations, how to recognize your Canadian ancestor. So it's a great place to get started if you get stuck and need some help. Genealogical word list, also on the Family Search Research Wiki. You can click on the first letter of the word that if you're reading a French document and you don't understand what the word is, you can click on that. This has a lot of the words that you will generally find in the church records, the parish records, some of the notarial records. It won't be in every word French dictionary, but some of the things that you're going to see repeatedly as you look at baptisms, marriages, and burial records. This will help you read some of those. It also shows French days and times, shows you how to recognize those so that you can see what you're reading in the French documents, and then some variations on the dates, and because quite often in some of the baptismal records it'll give the exact hour that they were born, things like that. So some of those things that you're not used to seeing, you should be able to find using the French word lists available for free on the Research Wiki. And maps, this will help you if you don't know where your ancestor lived, what kind of territory did they live in. If you're not finding them in the parish that you think they should be in, look at a map, see if you can find what is close by. So if they didn't live in that area, find a parish that was near there and see if you can find them in a different parish. So maps would be very helpful. Some other finding aids, FamilySearch.org records, and we'll talk a little bit about that, what we have available. The FamilySearch.org catalog is also a great place to find and see what records are available. Ancestry's collection, Ancestry.com has the Drouin collection, and I'll explain a little bit about that. There are also some marriage indexes. LaSalle's Marriage Index, which is a great resource. Not very much of it is available online, but more and more is coming online. Genealogical dictionaries such as Jetés or Tanguay's, and I will talk a little bit more about that. So where to start? If you're getting started, you haven't done French or Quebec research before, the two major sources that I would start with are census records and church records. And for census records, we'll talk a little bit about that. Church records, they either have the Catholic Church or the Protestant churches, and then some other records that we'll briefly mention are passenger lists and notarial records. So on census records, search those if you haven't done so already. Census records show the religion after 1851, which would be great if we had that in the United States. But after 1851, generally it'll show you the religion, and then you'll know which churches to look in, and that will save you some time. So you can also determine if the ancestor was Catholic or Protestant. So if it was before 1851 and you don't know, so how are you supposed to determine that? So some of the key things that you should probably think about are look for surname hints. Did they have a French or an Irish surname? Then it's more likely that they would be Catholic. Not always the case, but generally that's a pretty standard rule. Look for locality hints. Did they live in the French counties or in the English counties? And so it depends on where they lived. If you know kind of the area where they lived in, they had some English counties where they had a lot of the English who moved into those counties. They're kind of easy to pick out because they don't look like French names for the most part. Drummond, Sherbrooke, Shefford, Stansfield, these are more English names. So they had a lot more English Protestants living in this area. This is the area just above Vermont and part of New York. And so if they were living in some of these areas, you may be looking at Protestant records as opposed to the Catholic records. Again, they still had Catholic churches there, so just kind of look around and see if you can find it through surname hints or see if you can find it through locality hints, what their religion was. So if they were English, search for Protestant church records in the town or county of residence. If they were Catholic, search church records available on Ancestry and Family Search. And if not found online, then you can search church and notarial records on microfilm and search genealogical dictionaries for early ancestors. So these are some of the places that I would start if you're beginning Quebec research. And we'll talk a little bit more about those. So for census records, they did have an early census in the 1660s, which is if you have ancestors living there, then you might look and see what that census contains. It is an every name census index, census, and a lot of those are available online now. Census districts, just so that you know, are election districts, not geographic counties. So since so many of the censuses are indexed now, it matters less. But it was more of voting districts, election districts, than it was geographic counties. So if you're not finding them in the geographic county that you think they were in, and you find on the census records that they were in a place that you didn't recognize, it's probably the election district that you're not familiar with. And the election districts really had no boundaries. There's no map showing the election districts. So don't be thrown off if you find an election district as a place and you've never heard of that place before. It's just an election district that they used for censuses and voting. For Quebec, Lower Canada or Canada East, they do have head of household censuses only for 1825, 1831, and 1842. And then between 1851 and 1921, they have an every name census. And those are a little bit richer in information, as you probably already know. So censuses online are available at familysearch.org and at ancestry.com. So explore those well. Those would be your two best places to get online census records. Automated Genealogy is a free website. They have also indexed the 1851 or 1852. It was taken, it says it's 1851, but it was actually completed in 1852. The 1901 and the 1911 censuses. And that's a great website also. It gives a great index. It was indexed by Canadians, and so they could read some of the French names a lot better than somebody like me who doesn't speak French. So that's a good place to start if you don't have access to Ancestry, or if you don't have a subscription to Ancestry. Try Automated Genealogy for those census years. So this is an example of the 1851 census, and for some areas in Quebec, I wanted to show you this for a reason. So it shows the name of the person, and the forms are in French, just so that you know. That's The forms will not be in English. It shows the name of every person, the profession, the place of birth, their religion, and then their ages. And in this census, for some of the counties, the wife's maiden name is also listed. So here on this census, you have Octave Bernier. Shows his place of birth. He was Catholic. His wife is Olive Salbert. And then it shows their children. And if you look at the first line, it says that Octave Bernier was 49 years old. His wife was 24. They had two children, 16 and 13. I would guess that this is the second marriage, because if the wife is 24 years old, then the first two children could not be hers. But there is a 2-year-old daughter. So, 2-year-old daughter, yes. So again, I would look for a second marriage in this case, so that you can pick up his wife's name. Well, you have her maiden name there, but you know, look for some of these little hints in your census records. And again, this is 1851 for some of the places in Quebec that will have the wife's maiden name, which is a great hint. So anyway, that's the kind of thing you're going to find in some of the censuses. So just so you know, Quebec was about 90% Catholic. So it's a good chance they were probably Catholic if they lived in Quebec, especially in the French areas. Catholic church records began about 1621, very early, and Family Searches filmed the church records to 1900, and Ancestry.com has copies of the civil vital records. So for Quebec, the church records were considered the civil records. The church records, the priest filled out the church records of the baptisms, marriages, and burials, and then they were supposed to make a copy and send it to the government officials. So Ancestry has the civil vital records, and Family Search has the church records. So just so that you know what you will get on baptismal records, and that is the French word for baptism. It's pretty easy if you don't read French to recognize that. But it will show the name of the child. It'll give the names of the parents, including the mother's maiden name. So almost all of the Catholic records will have the mother's maiden name. In some of the Protestant records, you will not find that. It shows the name of the date and place of birth and baptism. Shows the occupation of the father, the residence, and then the names of witnesses. And usually if it has the names of witnesses, it will show you their relationship, if there was a relationship. So it'll say the father was there at the baptism, or the grandfather was there, and how the relationship of these witnesses related to the birth or baptism. For marriage records, and again, marriage in French looks pretty much like marriage in English, so that's easy for non-French readers. It shows the names of the couple, the names of the parents, including the mother's maiden name, the date and place of marriage, the occupations of the couple and the parents, their residence, and witnesses. And again, it'll show quite often the relationship of the witnesses to the couple. So this is an example of a marriage record. 1786, Jacques Lamoureux, son of Joseph Lamoureux and Marie-Anne, sorry about the French, Vincelet, and Charlotte Bourbeau dit Fleury, daughter of Joseph Bourbeau dit Fleury and Charlotte Quintel. So, and then towards the bottom, it says that the witnesses in the presence of Joseph Lamoureux, father, and so it gives quite a bit of information. So that these are the marriages of Sainte Famille de Boucherville, 1786. So it's a great thing to have all this information. And again, if you don't read French, you'll have to use your French word list to be able to go through, and you can pretty much pick out the names pretty easily. You just have to know what all of these surrounding words are and what the dates are. And then for burial records, this is the word for burial in French is sepulture, which is fairly easy, looks like sepulchre. It shows the name of the deceased, and again, women use their maiden names. So if you're not finding it under the married name, look for her burial under the maiden name. It shows the date of burial and or death, sometimes both, sometimes one or just the burial. Name of the spouse if it was an adult, a name of parents if it was a child who died, and the occupation of the adult, and then the residence. So this is an example of a baptism and burial. It shows up here the B26, that's just the baptism, and this is 1782, the baptism number 26 in 1786, and then the sepulture S7, that's the seventh burial that they have listed during that year. So this shows the 4th of April, 1782, the baptismal date. Marie Baudon, born the day before, daughter of Joseph Bourdon and Joseph Provost, his legal spouse. So it gives a little more information, but that, or you can kind of pick that out pretty easily. Then right underneath that, it shows the burial. 7th of April, 1782, the burial date of Marie Bourdon, died the day before, age 3 days, daughter of Joseph Bourdon and Joseph Provost. So it's the birth, the baptism, dates, full dates, and then the burial and death dates. So again, this is pretty typical of what you're going to find in those French in the Quebec records. And the maiden name is mostly used in Quebec, and not all of the locations in Quebec, but mostly in the French areas. So Family Search and Ancestry are two of your best bets to go to. Family Search, again, has images of church parish registers, and these are the Catholic parish registers. And then Ancestry has indexes and images of records created by churches, mostly Catholic, but some Protestant, and then sent to the civil authorities as civil registration or vital records. So that's kind of the difference between the two. So the strategy, find your ancestor in the Drouin index on Ancestry.com. That's a good place to start if you have Ancestry.com, or if you can have access to that. If you have your own subscription, or if you're in a family history center or the family history library, search the Drouin collection. View the image on Ancestry, and then with the source information from Ancestry, search the church record images on Family Search. I would suggest looking at both records. Sometimes you will find something on one that you won't find on the other. One example I know of was that on one of the records, the names were transposed, and so the husband showed up with the wife's surname, and the wife showed up with the husband's surname on one of the records. So look at both just to see what other things. They didn't necessarily take all of the information from the church records and put it on the civil records that they sent to the civil authorities. So I would search both. Now on Ancestry.com, there are a couple of ways to find it. It's free at Family History Library or Family History Centers, or if you have a subscription to Ancestry.com. So on Ancestry.com, you can get to it a couple of ways. You can click on Canada, or click on Canada down here, and then click on Quebec. That's one way to get into it, and then it'll give a list of all of the topics. You can search by collection. If you're looking for church records or vital records, you can click there. Another way to do it is to search, click on the search button and go to card catalog. This is probably a little bit easier to get to. And then you just type in Drouin, and it'll usually be the first one that comes up. And then you just click on Canada Vital and Church Records. And it goes 1621 to 1968. It's a little less complete after 1900s, but still it's a great place to get started. So this is what you're going to find on the Drouin collection. You can see the name of the child, the name of the person, whether it's a baptism, marriage, burial, the year of the event, the location. This is the location, the county, the parish, or the name of the church, and then you can view the images online. So on Family Search, to get to those Quebec records, you can click on the Search tab and click on Records. You can click the map of Canada. And then when you get to Canada Records, click on Quebec. And when you're here, go down to the bottom. These are the Quebec indexed historical records. And it only shows the top 5 generally, but click on Show All 21 or Show All however many so that you can see what is available. And then it's called Quebec Catholic Parish Registers, 1621 to 1979. And so it shows a little camera, meaning that we have the images. It only shows 79,000, but that is the number of indexed names. So they've indexed only part of those parish registers, those church, Catholic Church parish registers. So that's why it's easier to find it on Ancestry, find the date, find the page number, find all the information, and then go into Family Search and check those also so that you can compare the two and make sure that you're gathering all the information on your family that you can. If you're not finding it, it's indexed for Montreal and part of the Trois-Rivières area. So you'd have to browse through the images. And you look down here and it says browse through 1,399,000 images. And you think there is no way I'm going to browse through 1.5 million images. But you don't really have to. So if you have the information from Ancestry, when you click on the View Images, it'll bring up this and it'll show you the name of the parish. So you already have that from Ancestry. And so you should be able to go into that. Or if you have family records indicating this was the parish that they were born in, or baptized, or where their vital event took place. And so then you can click on the parish, Saint-Anne-du-Beaupré, and click on that. And then when you go into that, it'll give you the dates. Click on the parish name. And then this is will give you the records that are available. And so here, even though it's not indexed on Family Search by name, in this parish, it has indexes 1657 to 1816, and then it has the records up to 1900. So if you have the date from the other records, this is a great way to go in. You don't have to browse through 1.5 million records, and but you can zero in right onto where you need to go with the information from your own records or from the Drouin collection. So on the Family Search catalog, there are a lot of other records that are available. Some of them are indexed, some of them are digitized, but not all of them. So you want to always go into the Family Search catalog and see what other records are available. So type in the name of the parish or the county, and then search the topics: church records, census records, maps, notarial records, see what else is available. And just so that you know, Saint, or with the abbreviation with the ST or STE, Saint with the E is female, so you're going to have St. Anne's, or St. John's would be without the E. And then the ST abbreviation is STE for the female. May be listed in the catalog under Saint, so you may have to spell it all out in the catalog. Sometimes if you just abbreviate St. Anne's, then it'll only show you the French. I don't know why, but so type out the name, Saint. So try different searches. If you're not finding anything, you know that's the parish in Quebec, then spell out the name. So if you want to find that, go under the Search tab on Family Search and click on Catalog, and then type in Canada, Quebec, and click Search. When you when that comes up, just click on Places within Quebec, Canada, Quebec, and then you can go to the counties, the name of the parish, and then the types of records that are available for each parish. And you may want to explore these more depending on how much time you want to spend in some of these. We won't talk about some of the other records that you might need to search, but the church records and the census records are probably the best place to get started. And then this will show you the parish registers that are available for St. Andrew Beaupré. So that's another way to get into finding it on the catalog, that and other records. And then this will take you again to the Catholic records available online. So La Salle's Marriage Index is another place that I would start if you're not finding very much success in the Drouin collection or on FamilySearch.org. If you're not finding them, I would go into La Salle's Marriage Index. It's available on microfilm. It indexes 70 to 80% of the Catholic marriages before 1900. And it's not complete, but it is very accurate. La Salle died before he was able to complete that. And so it's alphabetical by the husband, by the name of the husband and the wife. So if you just have one or the other, you don't know who they married, this is a good place to look. It lists the parents' names, so it's easy to go back fairly easily. On the Family Search Wiki, Research Wiki page, there's an information on the La Salle Marriage Index, so that it will help you get into it. It'll give you links in there. And then some images are available online. So if you're in the Family Search catalog, just do a keyword search and type in La Salle Marriage Index. And then there are two different places that you can go. The La Salle Card Index to Many Marriages, and then the supplement. So if you, this is the major one that you would want to look at, the La Salle Card Index to Marriages. And if you're not finding them there, the supplement will have more for the Montreal area or for the Eastern Townships, which is some of the Catholic records in the more British section of Quebec. So that's a place to get it. This will show you the film number. As you can see, some of these are only on microfilm. This one is available so you can view the images. And this will show the last name is just strictly alphabetical. There are 174 microfilms. If they're available online, you can search it easily online on Family Search. If not, you have to get the microfilm at your local Family History Center. But once you get there, this is what the cards look like. They're fairly easy to look to search. So you can see the name of the couple, Jean-Baptiste Caron and Martha Fortin. This is their parents' names, so Joseph Caron and Joseph Lizeau. Martha Fortin's parents were Jean Fortin and Françoise Belanger. This is the parish, Lillet, and the date. And so it's easy to go back. If you're into these records, you can go back. You can look for the marriage of Joseph Caron and Joseph Lizeau, which is here. Shows his parents' names, Ignace and Marie Goyen, Joseph Lizeau, and you'll notice that the spelling is different on the last name on this one as it is on this one. And then her parents and the parish that they were married in. So it's a good way, it's just the marriages, but it's a good way to go back pretty easily, several generations, if you're not finding them in some of the other records. So they also have some genealogical dictionaries of French Canadians. Usually this is for some of the early settlers up to the early 1700s. And these are early families of Quebec. It is available on Ancestry. It's also available in book form. Many larger libraries, the Family History Library and some other large libraries have copies of these. There's several volumes with supplements. Tanguay did a great job. It's a little bit difficult to use and has quite a few errors in it. But it's a good place to get started if you have some French Canadian families who were living in Quebec early on, from the 1600s on. And then there's another book, Genealogical Dictionary by René Jeté. It's from earliest settlement, 1600s, to about 1730. And it's very accurate. It's a good way to look at some of those early families and trace them fairly far back. A lot of times if they can identify it, it will say where they came from in France. And so if you have some early ancestors there, that's the Family History Library call number. If you're here at the library, if you have access to it in some of the larger genealogical or university libraries. So Protestant church records. The Church of England in Quebec started about 1766. The Presbyterian churches were organized around 1770. And again, they contain less information than the Catholic records. So you won't find the richness of all the names of parents, maiden names, all kinds of information that you usually find in those Catholic records. But you have to check. Sometimes they will have the same information or similar information depending on the denomination. So some of the sources of where do you find Quebec non-Catholic parish registers? They're available images only online at familysearch.org, 1763 to 1967. And and then there's also a checklist of registers of Protestant and Jewish congregations, and that is the FHL book call number. Some of the larger genealogical or university libraries may have a copy of this, and but you can always start with familysearch.org because those images are available for free and online. So to find those, they're not indexed yet, so they'll be under Quebec on familysearch.org under records, and then you would be looking under Quebec image-only historical records, and then there's something called Quebec non-Catholic parish registers. So that's a good place to go. And then once you get there, again, you have to browse through 278,000 images, but it will give waypointing so that you can click on the name of the town or the parish where your ancestors may have lived. So it does give you ways to not have to search through all of those images. So some of the other records that might be available that you might be interested in, if you're not finding them in the Catholic or the Protestant church records or in the census records, some records that you ought to be aware of are immigration records. A lot of people say, well, I want to find out when they came into Canada. So they really didn't keep any passenger arrival list before 1865. So if there are any lists that are available, then they might be in Philby's Passenger and Immigration List Index, which is available online. It's also in several volumes, and you have to search every volume. So Ancestry.com is the easier place to go because it's all in one area. If you have access to the larger university or genealogical libraries, then you can look through the numerous volumes that they have. So if an ancestor moved to the United States, search U.S. records such as U.S. censuses and Canadian border crossings for more information. So if you're not finding them in Canada, you don't know where they came from, you might try the U.S. records first and see what you can find there, if it will give you more hints to be able to find where they came from. So passenger arrivals, Quebec, there are passenger arrival records 1865 to 1900, and then Quebec, Montreal, and other Canadian ports 1881 to 1935. So those are indexed on Ancestry.com, 1865 to 1935, and FamilySearch.org has them 1881 to about 1922. So you can search either one of those websites and see what you can find. Before 1865, if there was a book written about it, about certain people who came into different areas, Nova Scotia or Quebec or whatever, if there was a book written about it, then it would be usually indexed in Philby's Passenger and Immigration List Index. So notarial records is also another place. If you are a hardy genealogist who likes to spend a lot of time reading records, these are legal records kept by the notaries in Quebec. They began about 1626. They're very rich. They have all kinds of legal documents and marriage contracts. So if you're not finding them in the church records, there may be a marriage contract it was a legal document saying that this couple was going to be married and their marriage date. They have wills, deeds, guardianships, indentures, and all kinds of other things. These are generally in French. The collections are available on Ancestry.com and also on FamilySearch.org. But again, since they're not well indexed yet, they're still in the process of indexing. If you want a great indexing project and you can read French really well, this is a great way to get started. So that would be really helpful because those notarial records will be really nice once they're indexed, fully indexed, and easy to find. So some of the internet sites that I would suggest, the FamilySearch.org wiki, under Quebec genealogy, it gives you resources and links for finding Quebec families and what records to search. A lot of this information will be in here. The information that I've talked about will be there also. And so there's a Family Trees and Origins at that second website that will help you if you're looking for Quebec families. Quebec Notarial Records on familyresearch.org. That's the collection, that's the link. And then Library and Archives Canada website has databases, different kinds of databases. So those are some extra places that you might want to search to see if you can find any information if you're not finding them in the records that we've talked about here. So again, today we've talked about the historical background. So it will hopefully help you understand a little bit better where the records might be located, where to look for some of those records. Unique naming practices, so that you're aware of those if you're not having success finding it under the name you think they're supposed to be under. We talked about the finding aids that might help you as you go forward in your Quebec research. We talked about the major record types and what they contain and where to start. And we've defined some of the other records you need to be aware of, and then identified internet resources. Do we have any questions? Yes, question.
I was great-great-grandmother Brown, and in the 1842 census, they were in the Bytown and Ottawa area, and it indicated, and later on, it's been a long time since I did the research, that she was born in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into the records for Quebec up above. I have a ton of relatives. They settled in the Hull area up above, which is Quebec. And so I tried to look at some of those very early census records that were totally unreadable.
Unreadable. Some of those early records.
If you had any experience in that area, whether it's improved or
the records are the records. Some of them are in great shape and some of them are not. So some of the earlier censuses are not great, difficult to read, but there might be other records, some of these other sources that you're, okay. Yeah, we can talk in a minute. Yeah, so unreadable. And some of the digitized copies come out a little bit better. Some of the digitized records come out a little bit better than the microfilm versions of those. Yes, another question? Okay. What the comment was talking about the records of the Hudson's Bay Company. So if you have ancestors who you know may have been part of the Hudson's Bay Company, then that's a good place to look for some of the records that might be great resources if you know that they had a lot of different posts for the Hudson's Bay Company in Quebec and all over Upper Canada, all the way over to the coast, the west coast. So good questions. Let me see if there are any questions online.